To order the meeting of the Council Bluffs Community School District. Mr. Wilson, will you take the roll?
Mr. Arthur.
Present.
Mr. LaFurla.
Present.
Dr. Algress.
Present.
Mr. Hanson.
Present.
Mr. Grove.
Present.
May I add, Mr. Kazire is out of town, and Mrs. Riley is home watching us on TV. She's ill tonight, but I told her we'd wave at her, so.
Hi, Susan. Will you join me for a moment of silence and then the pledge? Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are proud of our schools. Introductions, Dr. Bruckner.
Thank you very much, President Grove. I am very excited tonight to introduce our support staff members of the month for last month, and they're both able to be here tonight. I told them we were going to say very nice things about them, applaud them, and make them go home feeling really good. So could I introduce to you our licensed staff member of the month, Nancy Johnson. Nancy, come on down. Nancy Johnson has been with the Council of Schools for 12 years. Here's what her nominators shared. Longfellow Elementary is fortunate to have Nancy Johnson as a teacher who is passionate about reading and is fully dedicated to our mission to help every child become a successful reader. She's a teacher who is exceptionally knowledgeable in both theory and practice, constantly reflecting on the student's response to instruction and adjusting instruction to fit every student's individual needs. Nancy is fully committed to the success of all students in reading. Her caring and patient nature has helped many struggling readers to make much needed gains. She knows each child's strength and builds upon them. Students' eyes light up when they see Mrs. Johnson come to pick them up for reading. When asked to comment about Mrs. Johnson, one kindergarten student said, "I like her. She's teaching me letters and sounds." A second grade student remarked, "She's nice because she helps us learn better. I like her because she reminds us of what the vowel stands for." Mrs. Johnson is always willing to give her time and talents to help build not only reading, but to help plan events to keep improving school culture. She builds camaraderie between staff members by organizing many staff events such as potlucks. Nancy's always flexible and collaborative when working with other staff members. She serves on Longfellow's leadership team and on the Longfellow Junior Red Cross Committee. She has many ideas for special projects as a means of building a community of caring students. Mrs. Johnson regularly supervises students for fundraising events we have to raise money for our AED supplies. Most recently, Nancy helped plan and organize an ornament-making project among students for the residents of Camelot Village. Cheering Nancy on tonight are Longfellow representatives, her husband, and her 3 sons. So, Nancy, as superintendent on behalf of the Board of Education, and with the support of the Community Ed Foundation tonight, the director even came, I am honored to give you this trophy, which is very heavy. You may have to have trouble carrying that, and a $50 gift card to the Olive Garden, courtesy of the Community Education Foundation. Great.
Just thank you. It's a great honor. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Here, so you can remember what we said.
Congratulations, that's nice.
And let me follow that up by introducing you to Yulia Shamel. Yulia, come on up. Here's what Yulia's nominators said about her. Yulia Shamel is amazing. She's in her 5th year as a special education para at Carter Lake. She's talented, resourceful, and willing to take on any task she is given. Mrs. Shamo spent her first 3 years as a one-on-one para for a student with autism. With her help, this nonverbal student learned to use a communication system, began speaking, and learned to read. While this student moved on to a specialized program, Mrs. Shamo built a special bond with the family, and their friendship continues today. Currently, she rotates between 3 fourth-grade classrooms, providing academic services to students. At the beginning of the school year, Mrs. Shamo reviewed assessment data to help her better meet the needs of the students she serves. In addition to academics, Yulia goes out of her way to create meaningful relationships with her students. She spends time getting to know them and their family. She's able to do this not only at school, but at community events because she too lives in Carter Lake. Mrs. Shamo is a self-starter who partners with special and general education teachers to meet the needs of students. During science inquiry, several students weren't able to afford the supplies necessary for their science projects. Mrs. Shamo worked with many of the 4th grade students before and after school to plan their projects. She also purchased supplies for them and helped them test their projects before presenting to their classes. She knew how beneficial the experiments and in-class presentations would be to the students, so she did everything possible to help them succeed. That's just who Mrs. Shamo is. She's truly living the mission of Council Bluffs Public Schools and Carter Lake Elementary. She's building long-term relationships with staff and students and is not only a para, but also a partner. Yulia's son Alex, a Thomas Jefferson student, along with Principal Doreen Knuth and others from Carter Lake are with her here tonight. Yulia, on behalf of the Board of Education, the Community Ed Foundation, I am honored to give you this trophy that tells everyone that you are the support staff member of the month, and a gift certificate from the Community Ed Foundation for $50.
Congratulations, that's nice.
Very nice.
It's wonderful that we have so many talented employees. Thank you for your service, both ladies. Okay, and now we're on to our agenda. Is there approval of the agenda? Motion?
Yeah, I'll move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? If not, all those say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Now, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the work session of December 15th and the regular meeting of December 15th?
Yeah, I can move that the minutes of the work session of December 15th and regular meeting of December 15th, 2015 be approved as presented in the packet.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hanson. Thank you. Any further corrections? If not, all those in favor of approving the minutes as printed, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Now we're to our part of the agenda of public participation, and we have one gentleman who wants to speak to us. Is it Mr. Houghton or Houghton?
Van Houten.
Come on in and talk to us.
Good evening, honored Council Bluffs School Board members and Dr. Bruckner. My name is David Van Houten, and this is Mrs. Julie Foote. We are here tonight to ask for your recognition and support regarding a fund drive to memorialize a former Council Bluffs schools employee that perished in the line of duty nearly 50 years ago. His name was Gerald C. Dixon. He was involved in an incident that occurred on May 17, 1967 at Gunn Elementary School. On that day, Mr. Dixon, who was the school's custodian, was tending the heating boiler, which was located in the basement. An explosion occurred and Mr. Dixon was severely burned. He died the next day at a local hospital. We are providing you with copies of the daily Nonpareil news articles of the accident as well as Mr. Dixon's obituary. My friend Julie, fellow Fund Drive member, and I were students there that day in the 5th grade. We have vivid memories of what happened and of the great sadness that we all felt when we learned the next day that he had died. Mr. Dixon was a very kindly man and was beloved by all. To our knowledge, he is the only person in the employ of the Council Bluffs school system to perish in the line of duty as a result of an accident. Julie and I are forming a committee to create a memorial in honor of Mr. Dixon. We are beginning a fundraising campaign, and there is a savings account set up at U.S. Bank as the Gerald Dixon Memorial Fund to receive donations. Our goal is to create a permanent memorial to him and the events that occurred that day, which will be placed in the vicinity of the former gun school. May 17th, 2017 will be the 50th anniversary of the accident, and our aim is to dedicate the memorial on that day. We are asking for the support of the Council Bluffs School Board to help get our fundraising drive underway. We are not seeking any monetary funds from the Council Bluffs school system or any other type of taxpayer funding. We are just seeking the board's recognition of this very worthy effort. Mr. Dixon's sacrifice, as well as his selfless concern regarding those around him, who were administering aid to his injuries, has never been officially recognized. It is our wish that this omission be corrected. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Our policy on public presentation is we don't comment at this meeting. We take it under advisement. And I think I can speak for the board. We'll certainly give you an answer at our next meeting. Would that be all right?
That'd be fine.
That's just our way we do when people give a public presentation to us.
Understand.
But we thank you for your efforts.
Welcome.
So I would just add, I appreciate what you're trying to do, and I think sometimes some of my favorite people in the schools are the janitors or the secretaries. So it's, I guess, duly noted what you're trying to do.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're to the superintendent's report, student achievement. Who's making that presentation? Dr. Plerd?
Showing up here. Okay, while Corey gets us set up, for some reason it's not casting, he's gonna cast with his computer. I have the privilege this evening to talk a little bit about how we're creating a College of Career Readiness, and I will be presenting most of it, but we've also have some visitors that are gonna help me speak to our college and career culture. Jordan Bala, if you just kind of hold your hand up. Jordan's our graduation coach for our Potawatomi Promise program. And then we have Elizabeth and we have Taylor. Those are two students that are in Jordan's class. We have a college readiness class that we've formed. Iowa Western Ready is the title. So they've joined us to speak a little bit, and if you have questions for them regarding that class. And we also have two visitors representing Iowa Western, Megan and Bridget. and they're going to be speaking to our partnership with Iowa Western and how that's helping us create a college-bound culture. Thank you, Corey. Thank you. Okay, so this evening I've got 3 guiding thoughts that I want to share. You guys have a board report, but I'd like to highlight a few things. There's 3 patterns that we see in the data. One of the things that we see is not only nationally but in Iowa, there's a decreasing enrollment trend when we think about second 2-year colleges and 4-year universities. And despite that, we do at least have a positive trend line. So I want to show a few examples related to that data. And then also, we are decreasing some of those gaps, but the reality is we still have some gaps present and we still have some work to do, and so I'll share some data regarding that. And then also, like I just mentioned, we're learning. We're learning about our partnerships. We're learning about how we can create a college-bound culture, and so we've got some visitors to help us with that. So the first piece of data that I'm sharing here is really indicative of most of the data, and that is that generally speaking, nationally, and by the state, obviously overall, there's a flat or a slight decrease in enrollment. Council Bluffs, like I said, if you look at the data, we've had small increases, and so that gap is closing. You can also see from this graph and many others that our high schools are becoming closer and closer together. And I think that's represented by many of the things we're doing in working partnerships between both high schools, and it's helping both high schools. So I mentioned the decrease nationally and in the state. You can see that over the last 3 years, nationally, there's been a steady decrease every single year in enrollment. And then also at the state level, it's been even more dramatic in Iowa for a variety of reasons. I mean, I think we know there's many reasons for this, but you see the pattern. And then CB schools, we did decline slightly in 2013, but since then we've had some slight increases. So you can see we're bucking the trend a little bit. Second thought that I mentioned was that while gaps are decreasing slightly, when we compare against other institutions, we still have some work to do. And this next chart illustrates that. So when we think about the data, it's presented to us in a variety of categories. Here's 4 of them. There's a measurement that's done right after high school, the fall enrollment, and you can see nationally that there's a gap between where we're at and where we need to be when compared to the nation. Then there's another spot check in the data where they check, well, what about after the first year of high school? And you can see again, we're behind the curve nationally. And then another check is after 2 years, they check the data, and again, we're still consistently below where we need to be. And then finally, they look at persistence, and that's another area that's actually improved for us. There's quite a bit of high persistence in our 4-year bound students, but again, still have work to do. Gaps are closing, but we still have gaps. So the other thing I wanted to highlight this evening is that we're learning. We're learning a lot of things about changes we need to make. We're learning about things that we're doing well. And 2 of the things we're doing very well are our College Ready course that we created, and we have some students here that are going to help us with that, like I mentioned, and also our partnerships with Iowa Western. So Jordan Valla, if you want to come forward with her, Elizabeth and Taylor.
How are we doing, everybody? Good. As Dr. Sport said, I'm Jordan Valla. I work as the Potawatomi Promise graduation coach for TJ and AL. I progress monitor the students weekly, and I work very closely with the teachers on a day-to-day basis to make sure that each one of my students are achieving the highest in their academic standing. Also, I co-teach college readiness class, and in that class, I make sure that the students feel as comfortable as possible and making sure that they transition very smoothly to Iowa Western and they have all necessary paperwork completed and they're just ready to do very well there. As Dr. Plord stated, I have two of my students who took the course trimester 1, and I'll let them kind of speak on behalf of that.
I'm Taylor Stanfill. College readiness class has helped me tremendously to be more prepared to succeed in college. One of the main topics that helped me grow further as a student is note-taking. Throughout high school, my note-taking ability was very poor. My notes are now more complete and well organized. My instructors helped me immensely in this class, and if it wasn't for this class and my instructors, I don't know where I would be. Thank you.
Well, I'm Elizabeth Giovanoni. As Jordan said, I was in his first trimester class. What really stuck with me was time management, because as being a teenager and having school and having a job and trying to find time to do outside things, it's really hard. And he taught us how to schedule our time better and make planners so that we could do the things we wanted to do in the little time that we have. Jordan has been a really great mentor. He makes sure that we're keeping up with our grades and we're on time to class. That's pretty much it. Thanks.
Thank you.
They're going to stick around in case you have questions when we're done here in just a moment. With that, I'd welcome Bridget and Megan to come forward. Again, they're our Iowa Western representatives, and they're going to speak to Iowa Western and a little bit about our College Ready program.
My name is Megan Milburn, and I'm the College Success Advisor for the first cohort of Potawatomi Promise students that are already at Iowa Western. So I basically just monitor every aspect of their college career at Iowa Western.
My name is Bridget Watson. I'm the Director of College Success Initiatives at Iowa Western. And when Dr. Forth asked us to discuss how we are creating college-bound culture and how we work with Jordan, I couldn't help but think maybe we should look and see what the students say. So at the end of the semester, Megan and I conducted interviews with this first cohort. So cohort 1 did not know that they were going to college. They were not getting any extra help. They did not have a Jordan in high school when they were there. So we asked them questions like, what advice would you give to students in high school? Like, how could we better prepare them? And on the sheet that I gave you, this fancy little handout I gave you, they're the top 3 pieces of advice, which were said by basically every student. Turn your homework in, put school first, and go to class. And I know that seems simple, but they didn't have that preparation or a Jordan telling them to do that. So what we did is we turned around and we gave this information to Jordan, and we said, listen, this is what the students are saying. Let's prepare them for this. This is what this college readiness class is doing. So Jordan is holding students accountable, shifting their mindset, and really motivating them, getting them to class, getting them through high school so they can transition to Megan. So we also asked the students, what obstacles did you face once you were here? And really, they talked about acclimating to college life. We didn't know what it was going to be like. They're all living on campus, so they didn't know what it was going to be like. So we are bringing the students to campus as often as we can. So during the school year, Jordan's bringing them, working with Megan, making sure that they're on campus, getting acclimated, having lunch with the college students, just understanding what it's like when they get there. Megan also hosts workshops for our students, specifically for our first cohort, time management, study skills. The things that these students now, cohort 2 and 3, are learning in high school, Megan's helping them with cohort 1, those same skills. And then the last thing is really just including the families. So one of the obstacles that the students face is that the families, whether it be finances or care, like I have to watch my siblings still, or my parents still rely on me to provide for my family, so I need to work. We're really working with the families and helping them to understand college needs to be first. They need to go to class. They need to be here. So Megan is helping with that as well. So that's that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget and Megan. So a few next steps, and then we'll open it up to questions. One of the things we know we need to do is to continue to build on our relationship with Iowa Western. We have a strong relationship. You see in the board report that half of our students go to Iowa Western, so we're going to continue to build on that. We've all heard about the Potawatomi Promise Program. We need to continue to implement that faithfully to be successful. We also know about our Potawatomi graduation coach, Jordan Valla, and the idea of our senior counselors and expanding their role and really digging in and doing some of the things that Bridget outlined and other things, obviously. Jordan and the senior counselors and the administrators and I just met yesterday to talk about what are we doing well, what do we need to do better, what's up and coming. So just constantly revisiting those things. We know that it's not going to be one thing. It's going to be the accumulation of many little things that are additive and that help us build this. And then you've heard some, and you'll hear more about the new 21st Century Grant and an opportunity to fund many of these things. So to take something that we've done that's good, and how can we make it great? How can we make it better? And funding a lot of times is part of that. And then continue to partner with organizations. We partner with many organizations. You've heard a little bit about a new partnership with the Centennial Rotary and how can we transition with our summer transition course, 8th to 9th grade. And so whenever we can partner with stakeholders outside the school district, we're going to be better off for our students. And then finally, continue to use teams, in-district teams, to come up with great ideas and implement them. It's never one person or even a small group. We've got to all pitch in. And so figuring out ways to make it part of our culture, not only with our counselors and our graduation coaches, but through venues such as an advisement program. That's another idea. So with that, I'll open it up to questions either for myself, for Jordan and our students, or for Megan and Bridget.
Can I pick on the two students? I
Why
will
don't you guys
pick on
come up,
you.
please?
I just had a question. What did each of you think of that you wanted to do when you were in high school? Was this even an option that you thought of, or were you motivated internally? Just curious a little bit more about why you chose to do it.
For the scholarship?
Mm-hmm.
So we got chosen, I got a paper or a pass sent to me when I was in PE class, and it said they had things to like discuss with us, and they didn't really say what it was for. When they sent the pass, they told us to be there the next day at a certain time, so when we got there, we were all just kind of confused on why everybody was there. When we walked in, they were kind of like all excited, and we were super confused still. So, we were kind of just sitting there like, okay, you know, what's going on? And when my mom had talked to me about this scholarship, and I knew nothing about it. And when she told me what it was, I like got excited, you know, like maybe I could get it. So when I walked in and they were talking to me about it, I realized I could have this chance. And so we had to go through and do a paper and go through interview, and I was just like so stressed out about it because I didn't know if I was going to get it. And when everybody else got their paper saying they had an interview, I hadn't gotten mine yet because I was at Tucker Center, which is another school I go to, for 4th and 5th hour, and that's when everybody got their passes, so I was really bummed out. The next day, one of my counselors came to my class and pulled me out, and they told me I had an interview, and I started bawling and called my mom. When I went to the interview, I pretty much wed it. I told them I wanted to be a nurse, and this is the reason why. This is my life experience with it. And they pretty much told me right then and there, like, you did awesome, thank you. And then they had another pass sent out for no known reason, and I didn't think twice about it. Like, I wasn't like, oh, that's about the scholarship. I was like, oh, it's the end of the year, so maybe that's what it's for. When we walked in there, they were super excited again. I have no idea what I'm in there for. And they tell us we got the scholarship, and I got super excited. I never thought I could be in something like this.
Congratulations. Thank you for sharing your story.
How do I feel?
Speak into the microphone a little bit more there, please. There, thank you.
Don't worry, this is only saved forever and ever and ever.
That's right. That's right. No stress.
Like everything you post on Facebook.
Well, my story's not like hers, but like I always knew that I needed to go to college. That was always a priority in my family, because my parents didn't get to go to college, but my sisters have, and that was always expected of me. So I was always like, yeah, let's go to college, but we didn't really know where the money was gonna come from, and this is a really great opportunity for me and my family, and I didn't find out the way she did. I got a letter in the mail. Because I don't think I went to the last day of school. So, well, I think I was there. I
You were
just don't
sick,
remember
right?
what-
You were
I-
sick.
Yeah, that one was sick. But it's been really great. Got to meet Jordan, and Megan, and Bridget, and all our classmates.
Thank you for sharing your personal stories. A lot of times we don't get to hear the background information, so it's neat and inspiring for other students. So thank you.
I just have a question on the, how has this program or this Promise program changed at all? I know that, a large percentage of kids have to go back and do kind of some rework as freshmen, as in their first year at Iowa Western, I've always been told. Has this kind of changed anything you guys are offering there, or put a different focus on it at all, or is this just, was like a next evolution to have more partnership with the local schools? Any idea?
I don't know if I'm understanding your.
Yeah, just, did this program where you have a focus from the community and a foundation to push kids into school at
Yeah.
Iowa Western, has that kind of changed at all I know there's a large number of students come in and they have to take, kind of catch them up to where they need to be.
Oh, sure,
To
like
start.
remedial classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are actually working we have redesigned curriculum, so that way the students are taking composition and statistics before they even get to us. So we've really worked to make sure that the students are college ready and that the curriculum aligns, and it's been quite the process, but I think it's gonna work out good. Yeah.
I just maybe for Dr. Plourde, just kind of that transition as we wanted to make this where college was inescapable for our kids.
Yeah, so when, we did the research in terms of how do you make something inescapable regarding, sending them to college, one of the big roadblocks was the math, college-level math. And so the idea was to give kids more math, so you do the integrated 1, 2, and 3, and then you start taking the college-level math. And then also along the English side, although that part we haven't solidified yet, but the two big gatekeepers are those things, and then as well as some of the things that you heard the students talk about, and that is just those basic study skills, taking notes, realizing the importance of homework, realizing the importance of attendance. And so, yes, having conversations and having a class with somebody like Jordan, who's experienced it recently and is going through it even as a college university student himself, and relating to young people. And then this aspect of intrusive counseling where there's one-on-one conversations with young people. Both Megan and Bridget are involved in that, as well as Jordan, as well as our senior counselors. So it's a number of things.
How do you think that this program might change our approach to our students? Like you say, where the skills they need to be successful. We always ask, what were those skills you need to be college ready?
Yes.
Obviously, you need to have some study
there's
skills.
a number of ways to answer the question, but I think, one of the things that we hear from young people are, and we heard a little bit of it here, is how am I going to pay for college? And then how am I going to pay for my books? And how am I going to get room and board? And how am I going to do all of these things that maybe many of us in the room took for granted? And so setting kids up for success, and being more proactive as an organization as far as Council Bluffs Schools, and being intentional with those conversations as well as our plan. So we're on our way. We're seeing a lot of success. I think the Potawatomi program, cohort 1 was a little bit more of a challenge because, like was referenced, we weren't prepared for that particular grant to come out, that scholarship, but now we feel that much more prepared, and we believe that it'll lead to even more success.
Having a little bit of knowledge of what happens in post-secondary, I think we really should be celebrating the persistence gains.
Yeah.
Those are great numbers, and that's something we need to celebrate because simply enrolling is not the end game. It's a start, but persisting and graduating is really what we need to be
Thank you for saying
really
that. We
concerned about,
agree.
and you made some good gains. I was curious to know, though, do we know what the trend lines look like for some subgroups?
Subgroups, yes, we do. It's something that in all areas, we're working on getting better at because we have gaps in our subgroups also. So, yes, we're going to hear actually a little bit about that in just a minute.
Related to third grade.
Related to third grade.
Do you, I guess, and I have a question, and maybe from the collegiate community around us, I guess. Does the job market here in the Midwest, where there's relatively low employment, cause a greater number of kids to go right into work that normally maybe elsewhere would have to go to school?
I would say yes, that's part of the national trend, downward trend, as well as the state trend, that's a factor. We hear that from our own students. You know, some students, and it was referenced here, some families count on young people to go to work, and that's an expectation for some of our families. And so that can be a challenge for us when we're saying, you know, think long-term. Think about a 2-year option. Think about a certificate program. Think about a 4-year option. So yes, there's some national trends that we're all aware of that are causing those numbers to go down. And that's why I think it is a celebration, not only persistence, but thinking about that we are bucking that trend consistently. Although in small incremental steps, it's still heading in the right direction where others are not having that.
I have to give some kudos to Iowa Western Community College because even, I think the program we have for these selected students is amazing, and we are making some really great strides. But even for students that haven't been selected for this program, you're doing some things. Most people know I have a mentee who this week started her second semester of college, and she wrote me yesterday, day one. She texted me and said, "Oh my gosh, college is so expensive. I had $300 to spend on books and they were $328. And I thought, well, that's not a surprise to me, but that's a really big surprise to kids that don't have the very close support that you have. But I know that you have an intrusive counselor that's helping her too. But today she texted again, "Oh my gosh, now I need to go out and buy a calculator, blah, blah, blah." And what many students from some families are learning is they don't have some of those supports at home that the rest of us would have. You know, my sons, when they wanted to go to college, they knew they would need that kind of a calculator, and we probably had one for them through high school. So Iowa Western is doing a really good job of supporting kids in the program, and even you're doing some good works with kids that aren't, so.
A question and then a comment. Of the Potawatomi Promise students that were chosen for the program this year, have we lost any yet?
Yes. Yes.
1, 2?
We've lost 5. 2 of them actually lost this go. I'm allowed to talk anyway. We've lost 5. 2 of them actually were not granted the scholarship in the spring based on their academic performance in the fall.
Okay.
But but they're
Out of
coming back to
45.
college. They're just not on the scholarship. So really 3.
Out of how many?
45.
Pretty good.
It's very good.
What is Iowa
comparatively.
Western's fall to spring
Retention?
persistence?
All right, persistence, 75%. So having 43 of 45 come back is very good.
Better than that, isn't it?
Better than 75.
And then my comment is for Dr. Plurd. Have our high school faculty saw this second comment here? I never had to study in high school. And I know kids can be flippant about that, but
Yes.
it bothers me a little bit.
Yes. No, they have not seen that particular data. I will share that data with the
I
principal.
mean, I don't even really know what our policy is on how much homework we expect the high school kids. Do we have one?
Not specifically
I
related.
may,
to
I'm
the
not saying
requirement.
maybe we should or shouldn't, but I'm just saying if we've got a significant number of students saying it was a breeze, I mean, to me, that says it's a breeze to get through our high schools.
Well,
And
you're
I don't
also
particularly
listen-
like that.
You're also listening to students that these people pointed out did not know this time last year they were going to go to college. So you're not talking about some of the students that were all year, for 4 years planning to go on to college, so.
I would venture to guess that that statement would come from students at lots of other school districts, if not all of them. But endurance is an issue in college. Writing endurance, studying endurance, test-taking endurance. It's something that I think a lot of school districts are grappling with. But
I might add something about the discussion we've had for some time in different small groups and things about trying to put more rigor into the classwork, you know, and that the need to, you know, are your students really prepared if they haven't really been challenged? Because, you know, when you get into college, it's a challenge. For a lot of kids, it's a challenge in the first couple weeks. You know, and they may have assignments on the first day and be like, wow, I didn't think it was going to be like that. And you want them to be, I think there's something to be said for that, you know, we need to make sure our kids have struggled in high school so that they have learned that they can overcome things. I mean,
Yeah, there are two things I wanted to mention, and Dr. Plort's done a fabulous job of really putting this data together and using it as a catalyst to help us get better. The first thing is we specifically identified 40 students who were absolutely not planning to attend college. This was life-changing for these students. Secondly, every time we meet once a month with Bridget and Megan and their team, we're there to learn what can we do better in our high schools to make sure that the next group of kids and the group of kids after that and the group of kids after that don't have the same struggles. We're committed to making college inescapable. We're not giving away the farm in our high schools. We're not. But we know that we can do a better job. And so that's why we're learning every step of the way to make sure we can come back to our schools, work with the teams that Jason's identified to make sure that every single kid that comes out of our schools can have the promise that it's possible for them.
So just one, I want to point us back to one piece of data related to that. I think we've heard that persistence is actually a national and a state concern. Chris can speak to that better than I can. But when you look at the data and you think about the population that we targeted, like Corey said, and then we think about the persistence that's taken place, that's some pretty powerful data. And I think it does speak to those young people received a rigorous education enough that we're beating some of those trends.
Also, not related to the Potawatomi Promise, but related to the topic. I don't know if it's shown yet, but Channel 17 came out and interviewed 2 students because Council Bluffs Schools was put on the honor roll, only the 6th honor roll for AP, and there were 2 students that were interviewed, both of whom have been college-bound all through their high school years, both of whom have taken 5 or 6 advanced placement classes, and both of whom responded about how much harder it was, and they realized that, but they purposefully did it. They all talked about their teachers being willing to help them and push them, et cetera. So I think you see both Corey and me responding and saying, wait a minute, we're really trying to be honest and tell you what's going on in our schools, and we want you to know that this is a project in progress, but it does not say, well, we weren't doing anything before this, because we were doing things before this, too.
I guess I was just more commenting on how has this changed our thought process on how our kids are being prepared and the supports we put into place and just how we, look at those students. It is amazing that we have little subgroups who get certain services in high school. You have kids who are going to do IJAG, and they get identified and they do IJAG, or kids are going to do this, but we have a big population, and just kind of taking best practices all the way along, and just curious, how that's changing our mentality.
Point well taken.
Well, another
Thanks,
thought I
Hans.
have, based on our 2 students, one mentioned that she was not very strong in note-taking before the college readiness class. Have we considered perhaps taking some of the skills that the students come into the college readiness class saying, I'm not very strong with this, but that's still very useful for even at the high school level, such as note-taking, and pushing that down to being part of a class in the middle schools?
Yes, we are talking about that. We are talking about what are the things that we've learned in high school. Much like Iowa Western has given us some great information and we've learned from them, we're doing the same thing with our high schools, being informed by our middle schools. I was fortunate enough to work at one of our middle schools, so I have some of that knowledge. And so, for example, the 8th to 9th grade transition course and the freshman success seminar course, those are venues to help some of those students. And yes, we're trying to expand those things to all students.
Well, thank you for your efforts. This has been very enlightening for me and what's going on. And I think I agree with Troy that what we're doing for the Potawatomi Promise kids, we need to expand and make sure all our kids get that kind of support. And I think if we keep on this tack, it's going to make some of our critics of public education sit up and take notice.
Yeah.
Hey, we're not sitting around twiddling our thumbs. We are trying to get better. And I commend all of you for doing that.
We agree. Thank you.
And it's great we have this kind of discussion at our board table.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
If you have any nursing questions, come find me.
Now we're ready for third grade literacy report.
Go. So the other end of the spectrum from how we get them ready for that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the progress toward third grade reading. I know that you received a very lengthy board report from me about, addressing the whole Chapter 62 with Iowa and what we are doing in regards with that. And the first thing I'd really like to talk about is the fact of how we assess reading. And we use multiple assessments to assess reading. You've heard quite a bit about the FAST. That is the one that's connected with Chapter 62 and grade level reading. But reading is a lot more complex than that, and we like to look at it in a lot of different ways. Some of the questions that we like to answer, first off, we wanted to know, can students read the text fluently? That's just one part of reading, is can they even access that text? Can they go across and know the words and be able to say the words in a fluent manner? We know that that affects comprehension, but we measure that separately. And so those skills that you need to access text fluently, that's what's measured by the FAST. We also do some district assessments that measure, can students access that text? So that's one of the things we want to look at and answer, and the data in your packet gave you information on that. Secondly, we want to look at, can students understand the text? Do they have basic comprehension skills at that level that they can read, really at the grade level that we want them to do? And one of the measures that we used for that, that you saw in there, was the Scholastic Reading Inventory, or otherwise known as SRI, and that measures some basic comprehensions. Do they know what that text is about when asked questions about it? That's another measure we want to look at. Our district assessments do that as well. And then the last thing we want to measure when we look at reading is, what can they do with that? Can they do complex tasks with that text? So when asked at a third grade level, for example, can they compare themes and settings and plots between two similar texts by the same author? Can they do it? What can they do with text is a different level. And what we use, the only thing right now we have to measure that is our district assessments. Really, no other measurement, outside measurement that we have measures what can they do with text. But we like to look at all those three things. And so the information in your packet really tried to triangulate those things with doing that. Obviously, in kindergarten and first grade, we're heavier on those accessing text and those early foundation skills. But as you get up into second and third grade, you're really looking at all three things combined with that. So the second point that I wanted to say is, you know what? We're making a difference. We are doing some things, and we started some things last year that really show that we've made a difference with some changes that we made. The first thing that I guess I would like to highlight with this is we closed the gap with the state average on the FAST assessment this year in first grade. At no other grade level did we close the gap, and we were pretty significantly behind at all grade levels last year looking at that. We put a lot of effort and energy to what we were doing into kindergarten, both really about how we were addressing the needs of our students who come to us. We have a lot of students who come to us not proficient as defined by the FAST. So we did a lot with changing our curriculum. We did some things with adding additional supports early on in kindergarten, and we got great results. And so we closed the gap with the first grade, with the state average, and we also equaled the highest UEN district at first grade with doing that. And so, you know, that is one way that we're making a difference. That's not the only way that we're making a difference. I wanted to include this graph. I thought this was maybe about one of the easy ways to see. What you're seeing here is some comparison data with how our kids did from the fall to the spring. In the FAST assessment, the cut scores rise throughout the year. So it's not that you're supposed to maintain the whole thing. You have to, it rises each time. And so what we saw was a really significant shift. We're the red in there as you look through the red at each grade level. And what you're seeing is the amount of kids that we moved to proficient was greater or equal at every grade level when compared to the state and when compared with the UEN districts that used the FAST assessment. They're not all up there because until this year, not all of them were using it. But all these districts used it, and you can see, and you know, especially look at first and second grade, what we did beginning and end of year, and the amount of kids we were able to grow compared to like school districts and compared to across the state. So things that we were doing with changes on what we're doing with instruction and how we're instructing kids really is making a difference. And there's another way I want you to look at this as well. And this is, well, what happened a year later then? So what happened with that same group of kids? How did they look compared to their counterparts across the state and in other similar districts? And the first one you see there is first grade. The kids who were in kindergarten last year, they're in first grade this year. This is fall testing from kindergarten to proficient and fall in first grade. And look at that huge amount of growth change that we have when compared to other kids. Last year, I believe, when we started at kindergarten, we had about 30% of our kids proficient, and this year, when we started at first grade, the same group of kids, they were close, I think it was it was almost 65% of the kids, 63% of the kids that were proficient. So we made a big difference with what we're doing, especially when you're looking at relative to other people like us as well and across the state to what's going on. Again, not as much a difference when we get into kids from second to third grade. We maintained about the same or we equaled the same amount of growth as some other UEN districts, we're consistently better than the state average, though, at every single grade level.
But am I correct that we put a big focus on kindergarten to first grade and first grade to second, and less of focus this past year on second, third, and third, fourth? Is that correct?
That would be a correct statement, yeah. And I guess what this also tells me, even with less of a focus and not as many changes at those grade levels, we're still moving kids, we're still doing some good things. We're still seeing some growth about kids that we're doing that we're not seeing across other places.
Is there a number? Is there like a growth target number or something? How do they, like what is that? Is it just to get up to the average, or how do they?
No, what you're really, the ultimate growth number, they would say, or what they would say is to say that you are really a high-performing, one of those up there schools is to have 80% of your kids proficient. We're not at 80. The state's at about 62. That's where we're at about kindergarten, and we're lower than that at the other grade levels. And so we're not where we need to be yet, which is going to be my next slide, which we're not where we need to be yet, but we are making a difference with what we're doing. I think we're on the track. And that's the third point I'm making on here is we still have work to do when we're looking at that. Some of the things that, just as we were saying, or you were asking about, our universal instruction isn't at 80% without any intervention. It's just not there yet. And we're always going to have a little bit of a struggle when we have incoming kindergarten classes who are at 50% proficient when they come in. We're always going to have to treat universal instruction a little bit differently, and how do we make up those gaps for kids that are coming to us already starting behind, not on the even playing field. And that isn't new. We know this, but what we're saying for the first time is what we did really started to close that. We have more to do with that yet. The other thing that we have to look at is our subgroups. As you noticed in your data packet, we're closing those gaps. We're doing better with subgroups when it comes to socioeconomic subgroups, ELL subgroups, and gender. Our gender gap is very small at elementary. That's a good thing. It should be that way, and it's a good thing we're seeing that. And we're closing the gaps with others, but we're not doing so well when it comes to special education and ethnicity. Those gaps we don't see as a close yet. And quite truthfully, we haven't looked at that data really well up until now, and so we're going to be doing some more targeted things along that way to see, to start studying and saying what might we need to do differently to make a difference in the lives of those kids as well. So that brings me to our next steps. We still need work on strengthening our curriculum. One of the things that we know around vocabulary and foundation skills is we started a better balance in that in kindergarten and first grade this last year. We need to continue to work at a better balance to making sure we're building good foundation skills with kids. Good vocabulary, we know that is typically kids who struggle with reading, they don't have a lot of good, strong vocabulary behind them. We need to do some more definite steps to make sure we're putting an emphasis in that as well. We need to provide more opportunities for students to engage in complex tasks. It kind of seems like right now that's it's kind of like the last thing we do instead of more of having an ongoing thing with that. And so really increasing that opportunity so they are able to develop and we can scaffold and develop those skills they need in order to do those things with complex tasks. Our district assessments are saying that we're really not there yet, and so we need to address that. And then lastly, as I just said, close that subgroup gap. Those gaps where we're not seeing the closing yet. So with that, what questions can I answer for you?
Well, congratulations on the progress you've made. It's pretty impressive. Be sure to share that with your whole staff. That's
we
good.
are. Oh, we have.
Maybe this is premature, but with this third grade repetition law, whatever they call it, based on our numbers, are we going to have very many in that?
We really haven't sat down to calculate that because, there's a lot of caveats to that. Our current second graders will be affected by that next year. And so we need to be able to, take some time to look because summer school is one of the things, and I'm giving a lot of credit to summer school too. I should have put that in here. I think that helped us a lot. Our switch in summer school, when you saw that growth that maintained over the summer, that a lot of that has to do with kids that had those opportunities in summer school to work and focus on reading. But we don't, we have that opportunity for kids to go to summer school, and if they take that, it's kind of hard to calculate because we know how many we don't know yet, but we can calculate how many kids need that summer school opportunity in order to not be retained in third grade. There are other circumstances that also would override kids being retained in third grade based on, individual education needs, or do we have a portfolio of work that shows, hey, even though this assessment doesn't do it, look, we have all this that shows the child can read and comprehend at grade level, but maybe not as quickly as the reading does that. So there's other things like that, so it's really kind of hard to predict right now, and we haven't sat down at this point to make that calculation.
And you say it's our current second graders that will be
Current second graders that'll be affected that after their third grade year.
So do we have plans, to make a special notice for the parents of that?
They get notified. We notify parents 3 times a year about their status in terms of if they're proficient or not proficient. And in that letter, it does reference the need for summer school if kids are not going to be, or if kids are not proficient, and the third grade law, or the third grade retention law from the state. And so yes, parents have been notified about that. And they continue to get progress notes, or they continue to get notified and progress if you are a non-performing or a non-proficient student. That continues 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring.
I guess I'm just suggesting that it's always tough for that first group that has to be affected by a new law. And I guess I'm just suggesting that group of parents maybe ought to have a little extra attention. I don't know.
Well, we're told by the state exactly what we have to do, and we started it.
Yes.
When these students entered school. So it's, for these students, it should not be a surprise. Now,
sure.
We undoubtedly will have some students that come in that have never heard of it, and when we talk to them in the end of third grade or middle of third grade, they won't. but
They are,
generally
yeah, and
speaking,
parents
because
are
we're so-
required to sign a contract that says they understand and turn that in. You do have to receive you have to offer a contract, and you have to try to get that back from them. Obviously, that's nothing we can forcefully go out and get from them, but we get a very good return rate on that. And so we do have that. So there are some steps in place that we take and then that we document to show we've notified, this. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to do it and place an emphasis on it, though. We don't really want anybody to be surprised.
You're way ahead of me then, that's good.
Well, I think in the past, we've had a reading report on our proficiency in reading, and if my memory serves me right, this is the first time we've titled it around third grade, because we are very aware of the fact that that law is coming and that the consequences are coming, and we want to be sure that we're talking about it out loud.
Yes, absolutely.
On the special education students cohort, I guess it is,
Group,
how big of a number of students? Is that every student who receives some sort of services? Is that a student? I'm just curious what that represents.
Special education, when it starts out in kindergarten, the numbers are pretty small because you're really working at how are we making sure they're getting good quality instruction, and are they resistant to instruction to really show that they might have special needs outside the general population of what we can do. So the numbers tend to increase as the grade levels go up, and so with the amount of with the intensity of instruction and the amount of intervention, really, we should have a good handle by third grade if kids are really in need of special education services. I don't have that exact number for you of the in on that. I don't remember it off the top of my head, to tell the truth. And so I do know that at kindergarten, it starts off much smaller, and then we go, and then it grows as we go, because that's how you start to, that's that identification process.
I would assume your students in kindergarten would have a big need.
And what
They're
you'll see is
identified
kids
already.
coming in from kindergarten, those are kids that generally were identified as preschool-age children or even before preschool-age children with some pretty significant learning needs that go on with that. So early on in kindergarten, those are the ones that are identified. We don't typically identify a lot of kindergarten kids throughout the year until maybe we've really had that good, solid year to work with them to see if they're resistant to good instruction and intervention.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have our facilities and construction report. Ms. Pettit here.
Well, it's on my screen, but, oh, there we go. It worked. You have to bear with me. They have a new version of PowerPoint on this computer. It's a little bit different. Good evening. We're going to talk about construction and facility maintenance tonight. Have several items to present, and got an ongoing theme for this evening, as you can see from the first slide. Had a lot of cold weather, a lot of snow, a lot of precipitation. Does anyone want to guess how much precipitation we've had in the last 4 months?
8 inches.
How much?
8.
8. In the last 4 months, we have had 17.87 inches. So as you can imagine, it's kind of a wet, sloppy mess in some areas throughout the school district.
That big rainstorm.
Yeah, the first rainstorm in September, there was 8 or 9 inches. It was a lot in September. But let's start off with Abraham Lincoln. As many of you remember, we had a retaining wall that was having some issues on the backside of the building, as well as some buckling concrete. And over the last couple of months, we have removed the retaining wall, installed a new structural retaining wall. We've removed the concrete sidewalk, installed some new sewers and inlets on the backside, And right now, we're just waiting for some warmer weather so we can put the new concrete sidewalk down. As you can see from the photo, on the left-hand side, we've got the blankets down to help keeping the the dirt from freezing up and getting too cold to put the concrete down. So keep our fingers crossed that we get some warmer weather here soon. They were out there working today, so I think they're preparing. Moving on to Thomas Jefferson, the Activities Center. Unfortunately, the cold weather has pretty much slowed this project down to a complete halt. We're going to have to wait till spring before we start the roofing project over the TJAC Center. And basically, as a reminder, it's about a 25,000 square foot roof replacement over the main gymnasium, locker rooms, music area, and choir and band space. We're still anticipating it'll be done this summer, though, in June. Moving out to the Broadway side of Thomas Jefferson, we have ordered the new LED board for our sign, and we're anticipating that it'll ship sometime in February with it actually installed at the end of March. I know the contractor is working with the TJ staff right now on scheduling training, so we're hoping that they have that done before it's installed and they can get it up and running. I did have a question from member of the community. They thought that we were actually getting rid of the whole sign, but it's actually just the LED board that's in the center of it. So we are keeping the actual sign and just replacing the components within. When it's cold, everybody likes to work inside. So we have a nice, steamy, hot pool area that we did a small project over the winter break. We actually refinished the locker room. We sandblasted the walls and we epoxy painted the ceiling, the walls, and the floor. And it's actually should be up and running this week. And basically, as a reminder, over last summer, we updated the touch pads, which is part of the timing system for the swimmers. And we're looking at pricing new starting blocks for this coming summer. Off to the stadium. We actually have 5 of our property acquisition homes demolished and removed from the site. That's kind of in the Avenue J North 17th area. We are still working on 11 of the properties, and they're in various stages of completion. Our abatement company has been working on testing and abating the homes, as well as once they're done with that, we have to do the disconnects before they can demo the property. Now down to the stadium portion of it. We actually have 4 buildings that we're working on at the same time at the stadium. These 2 photos down in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see the new ticket booth going up. And in the upper right-hand corner is the new Fred Maher team building, which is the locker room space. And basically, you can see it's kind of a sloppy area down there on the lower photo. Today, that's probably a big sheet of ice right now. But the contractors have been working diligently out there. If you drive by at any time, you're going to see numerous people out there doing work. They're enclosing the facilities, and they're working on the inside right now to get out of the cold weather. This weather has slowed down our progress on the fields and the parking lot areas, but you know, they're under a tight time frame and they know what our schedules are for spring sports, and they've been told they need to get it done. So they're probably going to have to start doing some extra work to get the parking lots in order. Our next slide is a photo of the concession stand, which is the upper left-hand corner, and then the softball press box, which can't really see it. It's under wraps, kind of like a big Christmas present right now. Both those buildings are in various stages of installation for mechanical, electrical, plumbing. They do have the gas to the facility, so they are heating them from the inside, which is nice. They will start pouring the slabs as well in the next couple of weeks. And overall, we're considering this project to be about 20% complete.
Just to remind everybody, our concession stand was in a shed with a
A little
table.
trailer. It's going to be a big difference, big difference. Okay, this next photo is a lot of information, but I'll kind of just do a quick overview. Basically, the B3 benchmarking is our utility program that we use down at facility maintenance to implement all the data from the utility companies. And that would be electrical and natural gas. And basically, from our B3 information, we avoided about $108,000 in avoided costs. And basically, that means if we would have been spending at the same rate, we would have spent that money, not necessarily saved it. So you can see from the little dial below, overall district-wide, we saved about 4.95% in energy savings. But unfortunately, the cost of the energy went up about 4.37. We do have 3 top performers that I want to recognize tonight for their reduced energy rate. Roosevelt went down 16.34%. Rue went down 15.39%. And Bloomer went down 15%. So give kudos to those 3 schools that did really good last year. And actually, 13 of our 19 sites that we monitor had reduced rates and usage over the year for 2015. So. And then I'm going to give some fun facts about facility maintenance. We typically don't talk about the facility side, but thought we'd throw some up here. Basically, last year, or for the full year of 2015, the facility maintenance department completed 3,968 work orders. That's district-wide. And the top 3 categories were HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. You can see by all the categories on the side, we have it broken down by flooring and roofing. But there's a lot of work out there that we do that's a lot of people don't know about. So just throwing that out there. And then by location, it's pretty standard thought process. Our bigger schools are going to have more work orders, and that's pretty much how it came up. TJ had 525, AL 514, Kern 441, and Wilson at 389. And actually, by this log, we actually had several buildings that are on there that don't have staff and students in them because we still were maintaining Gunn and Walnut Grove and the old ESC building, but thankfully those facilities are gone now. And then talking about custodians, we have 73 custodial staff members that maintain 1,668,495 square feet, which is kind of a daunting number when you think about it for the 73 custodians. And I don't know how big your homes are, but if you think about your home size and what it would take to clean 22,000 square feet in a week, that's a lot. Our custodians do it every week, and they do a pretty good job, and they do it for a really reasonable amount of money. Brian McAvoy, who's the custodial manager, figured that we do about 10 cents a square foot per year for supplies. That includes our chemicals and our toilet paper and our paper towels, ice melt. So they do a really good job for very little amount of money for the school district. And just a shout out, they do other things besides cleaning. They do snow removal, gym rentals, minor repairs. So, and then with the final slide, does anyone want to have a guess how much snow we had last month? Throw it out there.
Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, 13 inches.
We had 7 inches.
Shot over.
And to get rid of that 7 inches, it's basically all hands on deck. All the custodians, all the maintenance staff, they go out and they have to remove it, and they have to remove it before school starts in the morning. So kudos to everyone that does that, because they're here at 2 o'clock in the morning, some of them pushing snow in the trucks. So with that being said, is there any questions?
Let me say kudos, because I know you and I have talked about the fact that there's an awful lot that goes on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Stacy and I regularly get emails from a couple of citizens related to, for instance, snow removal, and I got a person's name popped up on my email, I think it was Christmas Day. And I thought, no, you can't be serious. And the person was complimenting Stacy and her team because when the person went running at 5:30 that morning, the snow around the local school had already been cleared. So I was glad somebody noticed you were doing the right things. So
Yeah,
you really are doing a great job behind the scenes.
Snow
and
has
we
to
should-
be removed 24 hours
I've
after
been,
the
im-
event, so.
I've been impressed at we've gotten better at doing across the sidewalks to the other streets. And there was years we didn't clear those, and that other side would have a good-sized mound, and we'd have, kids up there on their little safety patrols, things like that. And it's been good to see that they're kind of clearing all the cross streets too a little more.
A lot of that's the custodians
I know.
on site, because
Impressed.
the maintenance staff, they've got the big equipment. We're pushing the parking lots and bus lanes, and the custodians have to go out, shovel, snow blower, ice melt. They got to do a lot of hands-on work, so.
Do they do that, like the parking lots and that, when school's not in session?
For the snow removal, typically we try to do that early in the morning before school starts.
But if they're not in school, say they're on Christmas break?
On Christmas break,
I taught a teenager how to drive in snow on one of the snowstorms. And
Uh-oh.
well, it was a good thing. But as I was driving by, I noticed one of the high school parking lots was being used as a snowboarding adventure.
oh,
And so I just didn't know and it was on break. They were
Usually we
being
have to
towed
have
by
them-
another vehicle on their snowboard. And the parking lot was full of snow, so I just didn't know if they wait a little bit to clear the sidewalks and things and then tend to the parking lot afterwards, or if the parking lots are.
typically, especially at the high school levels, because of activities, we try to get those done pretty quick, especially at
Okay.
the secondary schools. If there's no activities, I mean, we're light on staff over the holidays.
Exactly.
But
No, I understand.
during
Just-
school time, we have to have it all done before school starts the next day. We try not to have snow days unless Dr. Bruckner says we're having a snow day, so.
It's a populated thing to do, I think.
Unfortunately, yes, and kids are out of school.
Right.
I had a question on the avoided costs chart.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting to me that the three top schools are all older buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume that reduction in usage is staff paying attention to what's going on?
It could be a little bit of everything. We've remodeled
Yeah, they have new windows
those
too,
facilities as well. Staff paying attention. We've been doing a lot of maintenance on HVAC equipment and monitoring. We've scheduled a lot of things differently over the last year. There'll be a lot of downtime that we shut things down to lower temperatures within the facility, especially nights and weekends. So the
So
secondary.
we wouldn't expect our newer buildings to have as dramatic a drop.
No, no. But you won't see that at the secondary facilities because there's more use at those nights and weekends.
Did we see a significant drop with the buildings that we weren't using? Was that
Yes.
calculated?
Yeah.
Okay,
They weren't on that chart because
Right.
it's kind of hard to say that that's a fair.
sure.
The other question I have, you said you had 73 custodian staff. Are we adequate there compared to other schools, or how do we know that? I mean, 22,000 square foot for one person seems like a lot to me.
20 seems to be the average throughout the districts. If you look at the Iowa schools, that 20,000, 25,000 range for cleaning is a pretty good average. It's hard to give a good square footage number per person because different types of spaces for cleaning
Sure.
are going to take different amounts of times. Like if you've got a ton of restrooms, it's a different type of cleaning versus, say, an office space and vacuuming and dusting. So the buildings aren't split up equally for those specific custodians. It's going to be
Sure.
different per person.
Oh, and when I'm in the buildings, I'm always impressed at how clean things look, so
They do a
your
good
staff must be doing a great job.
Yeah.
Good job. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lagana, you're up next, I believe.
I wanted you to get a full evening's worth.
I got it.
Yeah, he's getting lots of good information. Good evening. Diane Ostrowski, and I am pleased to play a dual role, both with the Council Bluffs Schools and on the board of the Community Education Foundation. So I'd like to ask Butch here to share some information about this year's classroom grants. And I will pull that up right here, and we'll broadcast it for you. We could do it without it, too. Yeah.
We'll see. You let me work on it.
And fair warning, I am going to get a group photo with a nice big check here, so if you need to crimp. Wasn't in our board packet. No fair warning. Would you like to start presenting, and then we can flash it up there?
Sure.
Thank
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the school board, Dr. Bruckner, staff that are still here. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come before you this evening and talk a little bit about where we're at with the classroom grant program this year. We were hoping to have a lot more to be able to give out this year, but as you all know, we had this thing called the Stadium Project. And that was a good thing because it was a great opportunity for the foundation to get involved with a lot of the community, and it really paid off in dividends, as you've all seen. This year, for the classroom grant program, we raised $20,182.71. The foundation received 61 grant applications from teachers across the district, totaling $54,397.61. And the review committee, made up of Dr. Corey Vorthman, J.J. Harvey, Jeff Coates, John Ridenauer, and myself. The committee reviewed all the grant applications and recommended that 28 classroom grants be awarded this year with regards to the available funding that we have. And a side note is that we're still raising money to try to meet a higher goal so we can get more of the classroom grants funded by the end of the school year. I'm here tonight to present a ceremonial check, as I did last year, to the district for a total of $20,014.86 for the 2015-16 classroom grant program. And I have that, as Diane mentioned, the large check. And I hope we can get a picture because this is pretty cool. This is nice to advertise. And I might make another note that next Tuesday at 4 o'clock here at ESC, we will be having an award ceremony for all the grantees. So I would invite all of you to be here if you can. Again, it starts at 4 o'clock. We'll have some refreshments, and again, hope you can attend. We'd like to get that big group together because it makes a big difference. Okay, Diane?
I'd invite you to go behind the board table, and if you would all mind standing and center there. You go behind as well.
Get in here, folks.
This makes for really good TV. Come on in. Okay, Dr. Bruckner, I can just see your. Right here. No. Put much behind us. Oh, this is gonna be good.
There you go.
Okay. I'm gonna take several. Scott is too. Do you want me to get out of your way? Yeah?
Thank you all.
Thank you, Butch.
You bet.
Good job.
Thank you for waiting.
I have a presentation. Do you want to do it from there, or do you have to do it up here? Okay. I have to have the slide because I don't have the information memorized. I'm here tonight to give an update on the early retirement program and early notification of intent to resign. And we have a couple of slides. We might have a couple of slides.
She's done a nice job.
Praying in public schools.
It did look like that. I don't think those are going to display.
They're not? Okay. I'll just read them.
Okay.
I'll just let you know. You don't have to see them and hear it. We, with your permission, offered an early retirement program to to certified staff members. We offered a 2-year incentive at $10,000 per year. Funds that they receive are restricted to paying health insurance. In order to be eligible, employees have to be 55, they have to be eligible for IPERS retirement benefits, and have 10 years of experience or more in the school district. Total eligible employees were 92. Of that eligibility, only 14%, or 14 participants, 15.2%, applied for the early retirement program, 12 teachers and 2 administrators. So part of the reason for that program is we believe that we can have some cost savings. We estimated about $1 million if we had a lot more. If we had 50, we offered it to 50, but we didn't offer something that all of them wanted. We also, at the same time, offered an early notification of intent to resign program. This is for people that don't qualify for the early retirement, but if they told us by December 18th, they would receive $1,000. The point being, if you know you're going to leave, we can start our process of trying to hire a replacement. Of that, you had to be eligible, have 3 years of experience with the district. We had 4 participants in that program, 1 assistant principal, 1 nurse, and 2 teachers. Normally, I wouldn't be giving this report, Janet Reiners would, but at our meeting this morning, I said, now, Janet, when you give the report, and then we realized it's kind of awkward for Janet, because Janet is one of those that's decided to accept the early retirement program, and we know we will miss her well into next year. However, she's got to work really hard between now and the end of the school year. She knows that.
We can object to that, right?
You can. You can
Okay.
vote against that. Oh, there it is. Thanks, Dave. That's what you were missing, so you know. So, that's a program you have under your later deliberations to consider a similar program for classified staff members. And the reason for that program is it's different. The people get $8,400. It's a 1 year worth of health benefits. We don't save as much money by the hiring of new people for those positions, but we listen to you very clearly that say you want us to do things to make this be a best place to work. So we tried very hard to be as creative as we could and compromise with each other as much as we could to offer that to all employee groups. So that's later in your docket. So we keep trying to do that. May I answer any questions? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Bruckner, for that report.
You're welcome.
Now we're to the resolutions part of our agenda. The first one is an approval of a resolution for designated fund balance of $50,000 for future maintenance of the Gail Wickersham Stadium. Is there a motion?
Approval of resolution for designated fund balance of $50,000 for future maintenance at the Gail Wickersham Stadium.
Second.
Is there further discussion? Okay, will you call the roll? Oh, excuse me, Scott.
In our board packet, it mentions for over a 7-year period. Is that funding at $50,000 now for that to last that 7 years, or is it an amortized over the 7 years will become 50,000?
We're saying there are $50,000 in that fund consistently along the way, not more, not less, but that we can use to address projects, needs of the project.
Okay, so it's, the fund itself is lasting 7 years, and in 7 years, we revisit it for dollar amount and such?
We
Thought it
certainly
was-
may. But we will have, what we're promising the funder is that we will have a sufficient amount of money in there each year, and we're saying $50,000 to maintain the facility in excellent condition. So if we would spend, Dean, correct me if I get wrong, if we would spend $10,000 next year, we would up it again at the beginning of the year after that, so it was $50,000 every year.
Any other questions, comments? Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes, and the motion carries. Next, we have an early retirement incentive for classified staff. Is there a motion?
I move that the 2015-2016 early retirement incentive for classified staff be approved as presented.
Second, please.
Second?
Second. Any further discussion, comments? We had that in our board packet. Dr. Bruckner referenced it a little bit tonight. So. And I think this is a good deal.
Yeah.
We're saying to all our employees that we value your service and gets a little perk for non-licensed employees. Any further discussion, comment? Would you please call the roll, Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes, and the motion carries. Next, we have denial of a request to waive open enrollment deadline. Is there a motion for that?
I move that the request presented to waive the open enrollment deadline be denied.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Appears we need to have a little discussion about this maybe, huh? Or not? We're ready to vote. Okay, call the,
This resolution is following the regulations that the Department of Education give us. This is not a choice item that we have, but any denial needs to come to the Board of Education. So if anyone has questions about the denial, please let me know, because if we don't do this, we're not following regulations.
any other comments? Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Abstain.
Abstain. Mr. Hanson?
No.
Mr. Grove?
Yes. Motion carries with 3 votes then. Okay, next is the approval of a resolution establishing just compensation value for one of the houses in the Belmont addition. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the exact language of the prepared resolution to establish just compensation value prior to start of negotiations for lots 307 and 308, Belmont addition to Council Bluffs.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. This has to do with the one house we're still in discussion with.
There are 4 properties we're still in discussion with. This is one house that we have worked with our attorney, and this allows us to start official negotiations that ultimately could end up in court if we keep moving towards eminent domain. Of course, our hope is that we come to a resolution before that, but in order to keep moving forward, we need to do this resolution at this time. The other 3 properties, one, the home that was foreclosed, we believe we have made an agreement to purchase the home from a real estate agency. The other 2 businesses, we are still working with our attorney and the businesses about some kind of just compensation for changing the entrances to those businesses. It'd be really nice if I'd bring those to you next meeting, but I can't promise that.
All in all, though, it's pretty good progress for everything we've done. Any further questions, comments?
So just to be clear, this property that we're beginning the next steps leading up to eminent domain is not the property that was under foreclosure?
Correct. This property is property that Midwest Right-of-Way representative and the owner reached an agreement on verbally, not in writing, but verbally. But the property owner is hoping to stay longer than we want the property owner to stay. Eventually, this will be the only property that we're trying to buy that we have not purchased as of tonight, because we're not trying, as you know, we're not trying to buy the business properties, we're trying to negotiate a settlement there. So this is the only property that we have not made progress, official progress on buying.
Does that help, Mr. Hanson?
Yes, I just wanted to be clear because I remembered we had 2 properties to purchase. One was under foreclosure, one was not. And, keeping track of which is
Sure.
which.
Makes sense. Any other comments, questions? Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes, and the motion carries. I believe that brings us to the consent agenda, which includes gratefully acknowledging and accepts the monetary gift from Gloria and Jack Rush for the purchase of books to be presented to the preschool students at Bloomer Elementary and Carter Lake Elementary. And then personnel action and claims and accounts. Is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
I move that the consent agenda items be approved as presented.
Second.
Seconded. Any further discussion?
Well, I would just like to point out that the proper pronunciation of the last name is Roosh.
Roosh, okay, thank you.
I know the gentleman personally.
Good. I'm glad you corrected me, thank you. Any other comments? Please call the roll, Mr. Wilson.
Excuse me, Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes, and the motion carries. Guess that concludes our meeting, right? Meeting adjourned.